Welcome to Early Late Nights, where once again I'm your host Dylan Blight for this week, possibly next week. May try and con someone else into doing it. If Ash or Nick are in the chat when we're live on Twitch, and any of you feel like doing it next week, feel free to have a go. Let's all chip in, have a merry old time. If you're listening on podcast services and or YouTube, of course, if you want to participate live on the show, it's twitch.tv/Explosion Network. Usually every Tuesday and Friday at 6:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. But because I work on Friday night, we are indeed doing the show on a Thursday night tonight. And we'll be wrapping up E3 in just a little bit. Just a little bit. We're going to start out much like we did last week. The other day, we're going to do a naughty story, or a bit of a negative story first, and then we're going to move on to doing a bit more of E3 stuff. I feel like I could do a lot on E3. There's a lot we could do about E3, you know, top 5 this, top 5 this. Basically, fuck Nick, just corner cuck Nick out of any possible subjects for E3 for top 5 with Nick. And yes, Michael in the chat, early late nights on a Thursday, I can do whatever the fuck I want. Who's gonna stop me? Who's here to stop me? No one. That's right, no one. So let's have a classic bitch sesh. And if you've been paying attention to the news, Twitter, what's going on? Everyone's been having a go at this lady, this lady, this person up here. Today's Show, of course, causing a ruckus once again. So the Today Show has blown up once again, running a story about video games. Fortnite, of course, because it's always fucking Fortnite. It's never anything else. Fortnite is like, I can't remember the last time a video game was like the center of the crux of all attention. Maybe like Call of Duty? I don't know, like, it's just like, it's always Fortnite as the example in these video game violence shit takes these days. And I can't remember the last time any other game was blamed as much. But anyway, Fortnite. But today's show has done countless stories, countless, and they continue to shovel shit about the game, about video game violence and all this sort of stuff. But I feel like this most recent story is worth pointing out because it is not only hurtful to people who play games and the people who like make Fortnite or people who even make video games, really, but it's also just slanderous, terrible journalism. Your integrity as a network is fucked. The Today Show is just garbage, to put it simply, I suppose. And they're basically throwing out information without sources or anything to back up what they're saying. So if you didn't catch it, what happened was Sandy Ree, who is credited on the show as Today's Psychologist, which she's not even an outside source. It's not like they've gone to an outside agency to gather anyone for this story, to talk about it, to run it, to see if that could help them. It's just someone who's the Today's Psychologist. So I mean, there's a bit of biasm there already, which is a bit silly. And in the clip that if a lot of us have watched circulating Twitter, of course, she says, quote, "It is proven that violent video games like Fortnite increase aggressive behavior and a lack of empathy for players," unquote. But I mean, you're watching, you're listening, you're in the chat, Michael. We're smarter people than what we've got over here. And if you do even the smallest amount of research, you'll find the opposite being proven on a constant basis. So in fact, a study done in 2010 by Addison et al., that's literally the firm or whatever, I was like, is that the real name? But apparently. And it was updated in 2017. So 7 years after they'd done their initial research, this psychological research place, their initial findings in 2010 found that they found a link between video game violence and video games and violence in people. They went back and they redone the study and corrected their initial findings in June of 2017 to say their initial findings were wrong. And they went back through and they put out another 20, 30 page article saying why and what things they had to fix and what they got wrong and what they would go about fixing it in the future. So you can find articles actually fixing stuff like that, which there's only many small articles you can find from the last X amount of years that you could pull from to say that video games is actually linked to any kinds of violence, because most of them say the complete opposite. She continued, however, even with me saying there's a small amount, she continued and said, quote, 130 evidence-based pieces of research show, 130, show violent games like this increase aggressiveness, increase angry thoughts, increase aggressive behavior, it decreases empathy. What it's actually doing, she continued, is its aim is to kill, hurt, and maim, unquote. And as Michael said just in the chat just then, today, quotation marks, must pander to their 60-plus-year-old demographic. And I mean, that is the main thing that you can get about this story. And it's to a point, it's worth just ignoring, I suppose. And it is kind of hard not to annoy, but I mean, they're literally playing to their market. And as our or certain generations, the most recent generations grow up, of course, today will just not be relevant anymore, because whoever's watching their shitty show will have all fucking died off. And then it won't matter anymore. But while they're still on air, let's just continue complaining about them, I suppose, for a little bit. I mean, it's a bit of fun. It's a bit of fun. And, I mean, 130 evidence-based pieces on national TV, not sourcing a single fucking one of 130, deserves a little bit of a slap on the wrist, or the fingers, or whatever you want to slap, you know, whatever works, a little bit of a telly-offie. In fact, in the positive video game linking spectrum type space, you can find a TED Talk from 2012 of Daphne Bavelier that actually explains, if anything, video games are, and she uses this connection, I'm not just making up this connection, she says video games are much like red wine, good in certain doses. You know, you have too much red wine, of course, too much alcohol in any extent is bad for you. However, a lot of adults continue to have alcohol in too much excess, and that is bad for you. But red wine has been proven in the right amounts to contain stuff that's actually good for you. And in her studies, and the TED Talk is particularly about what she calls action video games, which all the stuff she puts up looks like a bunch of first-person shooters, Call of Duty, stuff like that. So Twitch-based first-person shooters where you're having to track a lot of what's happening on the screen with your eyes and then react accordingly with your hands. So it's a lot of hand-eye coordination and the ability to track a lot of what's happening on the screen at the same time. So it increases your cognition abilities and many other things. And at the end of the TED Talk, she talks about how they're trying to create games that are good for learning, but the problem is that her analogy in this situation is she's got the broccoli, but, you know, Activision, who makes Call of Duty, is the chocolate bar, and you can't mix chocolate bar with broccoli. It's quite hard. But still agrees that even though playing too much of the action video games would be bad for you, in smaller doses and studies that she's done, and she says 10-hour periods, she did like 10-hour periods of people who don't play video games and did like a certain test, you know, see if you can track these things on the screen, do initial tests, make someone play a bunch of video games, come back after 10 hours of video games, and they actually perform a lot better. So it does train your brain well. I have sourced several things there. Not 130, but I wouldn't just throw out a fucking ridiculous number like that out on a national Twitch channel for everyone to see like a fucking lunatic, because I'm just not into that. You know, I keep it simple. I'm quite a nice guy. So today's show should feel ashamed, disgusted for this. I think it's absolutely atrocious to throw out slanderous stuff like this, terms like this, and it's just terrible. And once again, Fortnite, the game that everyone likes to drag into this, is in fact rated M15+. That means it's recommended for 15 years and over. And the kids they have in front of them in this story are presumably playing Fortnite. They have two kids on like beanbags on this segment just playing games in front of them as Cockney bait. I don't know. It's ridiculous. But they're presumably playing Fortnite. They look about 8, you know. So the moral of the story is, if you don't like your kids playing games that are rated M, pay more attention to your kids. Be a better parent. I don't know how many times we need to say this over and over. It is getting to the stage of ridiculousness. And the main reason they continue to run these stories, though, is because people keep interacting with the media. The video as of the moment, last I checked right before we went live, had 900,000 views, had 2,000 likes, and nearly 500 retweets. With the average of the rest of their most recent content that I could see getting around 20 to 30 likes, and some of their more popular videos below this video struggling to hit 1,000 views. So when you look at that, you can see why they continue to run stories like this. And although I think it's one thing to try and tell them off, I don't think they will care. I think it's one thing to try and put your own message out there, like I'm trying to do here now. Like if you put out your own YouTube video, or you post something trying to help educate people who may be watching the Today Show and getting the wrong message, that is one thing. But to constantly interact with their tweet or their website or anything like that, you're just helping give them more views and more attention. So there is like a fine line to run there, I suppose. You can't really ignore them to a point, but to a degree, it's probably best not to, because they're just it's like feeding the troll at that point, really. But anyway, let's move on to something a little bit nicer. And Michael just said it was Pokemon Go, which is true. I completely forgot about Pokemon Go. It was literally a thing where Pokemon Go was out and I was on about, the girl who was like using it, chasing around, and then she got hit by a car. I completely forgot about that story. She got hit by a car. I think she was on the news as well, being like, oh, it's the game's fault. It didn't tell me to use my fucking brain and not look up when crossing the road. Fucking morons. Absolute morons. I forgot about that story, but you're true. It's ridiculous. All right, so let's do a little bit of E3 wrap up. Let's do the unofficial, Dylan's official ranking of all 8. How many is it? 6. 3, 6, 8? Got there eventually. All 6 E3 conferences. I'm not doing the PC one, not doing the Devolver one, not doing any other weird ones that we miraculously managed to miss, but let's just run down the gauntlet a bit here and talk about what are the best and the worst of E3 after, of course, we wrapped up Nintendo since I last did Early Late Nights. So starting with the first one, we've got Square Enix at the very, very bottom of the list. I don't think this should come as a shock to anyone. Square Enix's showcase or presentation or whatever the fuck they called it was a mess of a show, to put it simply. It was a half-hour mess. The two most interesting things out of it were 2 new IP, 2 new games we got, but we got no information. It was a very weird teaser trailer for one game, and then the other game was the whole blind man weird thing where it looked like it was full motion video and then like crossed into game. I don't know. It was odd. They gave 0 details to any of this, and basically everything that else they showed wasn't that interesting, and it just went along fast, and it was odd. It was very fucking odd. And to wake up at whatever ridiculous time we woke up for that, I can't even remember now, 3 a.m. or something, not worth it at all. It wasn't even worth watching at fucking 9 a.m. the next morning, wide awake. It would not be worth watching. That is the one conference that I would 100% just not even watch. Fucking terrible. Moving on to the next one, we got EA. So EA was the kickoff to the whole of E3. They set the bar very low. Square Enix managed to come in and just take their position, but EA started off the whole of E3 pretty terribly. They had, admittedly, a lot of moments that don't interest me, but that's not why I'm fully taking away all their points. They did have a lot of moments that didn't interest me. All the sports games. All my years of watching E3 sports games never interest me, but that doesn't mean that it has to take away from the actual presentation. I give them that, because my interest doesn't mean anything. But even without that, it was just the worst paced thing and had the most corny, eye roll, oh my god, why are you doing this moments of the whole show, as far as I'm concerned. And they made the weirdest choices for what to show and what to spend time on. Of course, there was 0 Star Wars footage shown, which was a complete fucking shock to me. They've put out Battlefront 2, which hasn't been received well at all, and they decided to come out and talk about it a little bit. They come out to talk about Star Wars Battlefront 2. They're showing the trailer for the Han Solo DLC that's out now, or like this week, I think, at some point. But they're showing the trailer for that. Already seen that. They released details about that a week beforehand. Then they come out on stage and they say Clone Wars DLC expansion, whatever is coming, maps, characters. They put up a picture of General Grievous on the screen. They don't show any gameplay from any of the maps or anything like that. And I'm like, you're doing fucking great for this. And another thing they do, of course, is they cut to in the audience and they get the announcement, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is the title of the game that Respawn's working on. The whole title. That was one of the most awkward, random fucking things that has ever happened has happened in all of E3. But still, I managed to write a whole article about that certain title because of Star Wars, so you can check that out on explosionnetwork.com if you haven't already. I break down the whole title thing. Anyway, moving on. And then we got the shoutcasted corny segment about Command & Conquer, the mobile game that's coming. And I'll say this, I do play a lot of mobile games. It's not like me complaining about mobile games or saying the game looked bad. The game could be fun. I don't know. But the fact they had two dudes come out and they shoutcasted it and it seemed to go for 15, 20 minutes and it was just the worst way to show that game, the mobile game, because you already know people look down on mobile games. Still, mobile games in the gaming spectrum is looked down upon badly. And you're going to come out at E3 and have a shoutcasted event for this. Oh my god, it was atrocious. It was fucking atrocious. It was bad. Michael in the chat saying, did they squeeze in Jedi Fallen Order? They I don't even know if that game's going to come out this generation at this point. Is my honest reaction to that. If I'm going to be honest with you. So overall, the whole thing was meh. Number 5. This one hurts me. Of course, being the big PlayStation fan I am, Platinum Explosion every Tuesday, 12 p.m. Listen to it. So PlayStation comes out, and although their show was full of games that I want to play, even though Death Stranding looked like the weirdest fucking shit, I'm still interested, and that was the only one of the 4 main pillars that I was weirded out by and kind of like, I'm getting bored of watching fucking Norman Reedus walk around. Their conference was a mess. It was, and I told you, it hurts to say it, it was a fucking mess. They open it with this weird theater thing they've set up like a church. It's odd. I don't know what's happening. They then show The Last of Us 2 gameplay, of course, and trailer. And everyone in there, I'm sure, was going, this is great, this is really interesting. And all of us at home are going, fuck yeah, for about 10, 15 minutes, however long that whole thing went for. And then after that, they went to an intermission for about 10, 15 minutes, which killed all the fucking momentum. Then they did 2 song pieces. One before Last of Us, they did a whistle flute song before the Ghost of Tsushima thing. And that went for like way too long. That once again killed all the momentum. Death Stranding came out and was looking interesting. Norman Reedus walked for too long. That killed all the momentum. The Dreams intermissions thing, cool idea, wasn't implemented well at all. That was being weird. Overall, I don't know what Sony was doing this year. I'm pretty sure they just got really, really cocky or something like that. I think they're just running off a high of cockiness and they're making bad plays. And that's not good because the last time Sony got cocky, of course, we got the PS3 coming out for 1,000 fucking Australian dollars. So, Woosa, don't do that to me again, Sony. We don't want that. Coming in at number 4, Ubisoft or whatever the fuck, how you're supposed to pronounce them, I still don't know. So we got no Splinter Cell, which was really odd because the Walmart leak turned out to not be 100% correct, which was disappointing. We all thought was getting Splinter Cell, but I mean, that's not why it's this low on the list, but it is up this high because the OMG moment of my show was, of course, the Jade reveal. If you watched our stuff or if you heard me talk about, if you've listened to Platinum Explosion this week or anything like that, the Jade reveal from the Beyond Good and Evil 2 trailer is my number 1 OMG moment of E3 this year. And I love having at least one OMG moment, and Ubisoft managed to provide me with that this year. So they do get major points for that. Division 2 looks great. Assassin's Creed, I'm really not interested in personally, but I'm happy to see that people who have fallen off the Assassin's Creed bandwagon have managed to jump back on with this one, saying that it looks less Assassin's Creed and that's why they're more interested. However, to me, it just looks like some changes on the Assassin's Creed formula that's not enough to make me interested, and it's going to be the first year in the many years that I'm not actually going to bother pre-ordering that game. And I think the last time I dived off and didn't bother pre-ordering Assassin's Creed was Revolution, like whatever the finale of the Ezio trilogy was. That was the last one I did pre-order, so kind of thing. And they just had several odd moments. Of course, Ubisoft usually does this, as you're seeing on the screen here at the moment. There is the whole dancing thing opening. Then when you had the Trials dude come out, it was funny for a second, but it went on to way too long. And it got really weird. And I mean, Ubisoft always does weird conferences, but I mean, they're getting better. Like the Just Dance stuff this year wasn't as bad and cringy as it has been, and they got it out of the way right at the start, which was a plus, but it still doesn't make it great. Moving on to number 3. Number 3, I'm going to chuck in Nintendo. Now, Nintendo wasn't a huge OMG. There was no great moments. I really wanted to see Yoshi and like what the fuck? Not Harvest Moon, but the other one. PlayStation, Nintendo, we get along sometimes, but there was a bunch of games that we was expecting to see and we didn't actually manage to see. Odyssey DLC would have been great to see, like a full expansion to that, not like the what they had, the Luigi fucking balloon mode or whatever, which was like a small free add-on or whatever that was, like a proper Odyssey DLC I was expecting to see. So although we didn't get those things, Nintendo was still really, really strong. And as someone who's not a huge fan of Smash, the stuff at the end wasn't boring me, but it wasn't properly exciting me. It was like, oh yeah, this cool, all the characters. I'm excited to pick it up. It'll be great. But I wasn't sitting there freaking out. I've heard people were freaking out who are big pro players or people obsessed with that game, which I assume they were when I was talking about, like, if they're changing the blocking, and if you block 6 times it gets weaker, and they're changing how you counters and all this sort of stuff, that I'm just like, I'm still literally going to play the game the same way I always have, which is just button mash, jump around the place, and just have a good old time. None of this stuff is doing anything for me, but it was still cool to see and still good to appreciate to see all that. But they did start the show, or their whatever they call it, presentation thing. They did start it out really well, I thought. So you got Hollow Knight, which I've actually been playing on my Switch. Started that up today, and that's really good. So it's great to finally have that on the platform. And then you got Fortnite, of course, which dropped. And even if you don't care about Fortnite, the game did get downloaded 5 million times in 24 hours. So it was kind of a big deal. But it would have been nice to see some more of those big announcements. But the front end was a bunch of games that are coming soon. Octopath Traveler, all these other things that are coming out within the next couple months, or out now, or out before the end of the year. So they did give us a bunch of stuff that is coming soon, which is good, to a point. And then, of course, the Smash stuff was a nice finish up to all of it, if you care. I mean, I care to a point, but I don't care enough. So Nick said 2 million Fortnite. I'm just exaggerating. I'm basically the fucking Today Show at this point. I don't know why any of you are here. Don't trust anything coming out of my mouth. Number 2 on my list is Bethesda. Fallout 77, I wasn't really hyped on at all. They put out the teaser trailer, watched it when it was on Twitch, was like, cool. Fallout Online doesn't really do anything for me. I like to play my Fallout games alone, because that's the only option we've had for ages. But Fallout to me is a single player experience. It's not an online game. I don't want to run into people. That does not sound like fun to me. It doesn't sound like fun at all. But when they started showing it, and they started explaining systems, and Todd Howard owns that stage like a motherfucker. He walks around. He looks into your eyes through the screen. He digs into your soul. He gives you little love heart eyes. And you're like, oh, suddenly I'm into this Fallout 76 game. Suddenly I feel really, really interested in this game, Mr. Howard. Suddenly I want to be your best friend. And then other than that, they did set up things that I personally don't like this, but it is hype moments. And it is some of the most talked about moments of E3 at this point, I suppose, which is, of course, Starfield and Elder Scrolls. My personal opinion is I would have rather not them show teasers for games that are not going to be out for like fucking 5 to 10 years. For Elder Scrolls would be my guess at this point. Starfield, you could put 3 to 5, maybe, if we're expecting the next gen consoles in 2 years. But I didn't need those teasers. I know they were great, but they were a cool wow moment at the end of the whole show, I suppose, if that's what you're into. We got a new Doom announcement. We got follow-up for games that came out last year, of course, with the Wolfenstein and the Prey DLCs being added. So that was cool. Overall, and then I'm interested. I'm not like a pre-order level for Rage 2, but everything I've seen interests me. I just need to see some more of that car combat. You need some more of that car combat to grab me in and interest me, Bethesda. Give me that. id. No, id's fine. They're doing the shooty stuff. It's fine. But Bethesda overall, I thought, put on a pretty decent show They got number 2. So then, of course, that does leave Xbox as number 1. I don't think there's really an argument about this, at this point, because they had the only show of E3 this year that I felt like was generally entertaining from start to finish, with no complete downer or no complete disconnect moments. And it was a great year for Xbox. It wasn't as good as them coming out saying, we've got Halo coming this year, or like some big first party game coming this year. That would have been huge for them if they came out and announced they actually had a great first party game coming this year, because of course they're lacking in the first party department. But they did come out and of course announce that they do have a Halo and Gears coming along the line. Well, they got like 3, well, the mobile one. Does the mobile one count? Not really. So you got the Gears Tactics, and you got the actual Gears 5 coming. Then you have the Halo thing coming, which is probably next gen. Let's be honest, that's not coming this year. And then they did announce they have 5 new studios all acquired, including Ninja Theory, which is one of the biggest stories coming out of E3, I feel. Them acquiring Ninja Theory is huge, and that was actually one of my other wow moments. They were legit like, wow, they got Ninja Theory. It's not like Jade reveal wow. I'm not like, oh my god, like that, you're blowing my mind. But when they announced they got Ninja Theory, it was like, what, they got Ninja? That's ridiculous. If I didn't have an Xbox, I would be, and I still just was in the PlayStation zone, I would be annoyed to a point. But I mean, I understand business is business, but it's still just like, wow, you got that. Hellblade was an timed exclusive on PlayStation for a very long time. That is a very big get up. And Hellblade was my game of the year last year, and now Microsoft has that studio, so that is a huge get, a very huge get. But the thing that made Xbox's conference so good was it was basically third-party bonza. And when you compare it to Sony, which they were like, here's our big first-party games, and everyone's like, cool, Sony has heaps of first-party games. Xbox showing all this third-party stuff means you get associated. People get associated with these games to being Xbox. Much how, like, if PlayStation shows Destiny on their stage, everyone, even though they know it's not exclusive, you think Destiny, you think PlayStation. There was all those years where we thought Call of Duty, you thought Xbox, just because there was that connection there. So I think Xbox coming out and showing a lot of these third-party games is going to help for the next couple of years when these games start releasing and people just start thinking of them, seeing them, and every time they see a trailer, they're going to start thinking of Microsoft. They're going to start thinking of the big old X on their logo. And the only downer moments of their whole show, I felt, were they spent a little bit too long yapping on about Forza. A little bit too long. And I'm really pumped for that game. It looked great, but a little bit too long. They had a lady come out, talk about fucking ridiculous AI technology stuff. I still don't know what the fuck she was on about. AI, fast boot, nonsense. I really don't know. And then they talked about Game Pass for a little bit too long. I'm like, I know you want people to buy your subscription premium service. I still don't think E3 is the place to talk about that stuff particularly. Like, you can come out stage and be like, the first fucking one, Elder Scrolls Online, all these sorts of things are going to be available on Game Pass starting today, but that's not a little bit low. But they weren't like downer disinterest moments. They only lasted a couple minutes. They were just not that great for me personally, I suppose. Overall though, E3 this year, decent. I'd give the whole experience probably like a solid 7.5 overall. It wasn't it's still not as bad as it has been years and years and years ago. Like, if you've been watching E3 for the past 6 to 8 years, when was it really bad? Like, if you've been watching since like early mid PS3, Xbox 360 generation, which is around when I started watching E3. Those first couple of E3s, when I started getting into watching them and staying up and watching all the conferences, they were terrible. They were really, really bad. So even though this one was a bit of a mix and it wasn't as good as we've had, especially from Sony, of course, for the last couple of years, I still think overall it was a lot better than a lot of people are saying it was. Anyway, thank you for joining me for another episode of Early Late Night. Don't forget you can follow the Explosion Network on @ExplosionPod on Twitter, then head on over to explosionnetwork.com and check out all their other great podcast shows, articles, reviews, and of course, E3 content, because that is what we have been talking about. Give us a follow if you're live watching along on Twitch right now, and if you're not, make sure you follow the channel twitch.tv/Explosion Network, where Early Late Nights is streamed 6:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time every Tuesday and Friday. When Kieran actually hosts it, when I'm doing it, do it whenever the fuck I want. Do it at 3 a.m. next week. I'm not doing it at 3 a.m. That's actually going to be the thing. If you're watching on Twitch and you want to catch up on older episodes or something like that, youtube.com/Explosion Network. Or if you want to listen to the show and not watch it because I'm ugly as fucking, you don't look at my face, just Google or iTunes or Cast, Pocket Cast. That's the one I want to sponsor the show, Early Late Nights with Kieran Much or something along those lines. I've been your host, Dylan Blight. You can follow me on Twitter @VivaLaDill. Have a great night. I'll see you all in the future times.
Hey, Ashley here to let you know what you need to know about the Explosion Network in June 2018. Pleasure Explosion is coming to an end. On Thursday, the 21st of June, the Explosion Network's original podcast will play that signature guitar riff one more time as we retire the show at episode 69.
Nice!
If you have any favourite moments or questions or even random topics, it's Pleasure Explosion after all. Throw random shit. Tweet them at ExplosionPod with the hashtag Pleasure69. Or email us at pleasure@explosionnetwork.com. June means E3, so make sure to check out explosionnetwork.com for all our E3 coverage and react. Tales of Theldon's whole first season is now available to binge listen to. Is that even a thing? Our D&D audio drama is available at explosionnetwork.com, iTunes, and all other good podcasting services. Thank you to everyone who's listened, and if you haven't yet, now's the time. If you're watching Westworld Season 2 at the moment, make sure to follow our Twitch at twitch.tv/Explosion Network for Bevanworld, our Westworld after show where we break down every episode. Watch live on Twitch or find it on YouTube at youtube.com/Explosion Network and podcast services including iTunes the day after airing. And of course, you can find all our other great podcasts, articles, and other explosive content like What Do You Want to Watch at explosionnetwork.com. So until next time, keep consuming our content, I guess?